What's up, guys? I'm Alexis Nunes, and you are watching Chasing Green Arrows. Honestly, again, after everything that happened with, Christian Eriksen and the losses that they suffered after that, I just thought, oh my goodness, this is just not going to be Denmark's tournament either. And I don't think anybody would have really been angry or would have expected them to just bounce back how they have. But it is absolute credit to all of them for digging deep, and I suppose even just trying to even do this for Christian Eriksen, if that's even what's getting them going, because they have been absolutely amazing. We all love a fairy tale and underdog story. And it is just outrageous that we're still seeing Denmark here after everything that they've been through. So again, I know I did a preview as well yesterday with a Danish journalist, and he was saying that everyone in Denmark is already so proud of the team that, they're not going to be, they'll be upset, but they won't be terribly upset or blame the team if they do get ousted in the semifinals. That was still an amazing run. But they said even them, as happy as they are to support this team, they're very realistic that they're up against an England that's absolutely stacked. Like even with Christian Eriksen still there, and at least he would have provided so much helpful insight on the pitch. Maybe he still is providing that insight, having played with so many of the England players and played against so many of the England players as well. But still, they've already seemed like they've resigned to the fact that they could and probably should and will lose to England. But either way, amazing story for them. And again, like I said, you never know, because so many people would have counted them out from that first loss and then maybe even after the second one. And I think that, they've proven that there's a lot more to them than probably we wanted to give them credit for. Obviously, there's a lot of spotlight on them, but they still sort of slipped under the radar. I think a lot of people didn't expect them, given everything that happened, to have this much fight to go on. And here they are. So I think they do have to be respected. Obviously, England, heavy, heavy, heavy favorites, but still, all of the England players, I'm sure, will tell you that you can't go in, thinking that at all, because you never know. Honestly, I would think, I don't even know. I think the world would have to crumble. The pitch would have to open up at Wembley to stop England from getting into this final. With the most respect to Denmark, if England lose, I feel like it would be a situation of England self-destructing on their own, because at the way that they are going and the confidence and the momentum and, playing in front of this Wembley crowd, it's something different. You bring up the semi-final loss to Croatia. That is so far now, I think, in the back of their minds. And I know even England fans are the most pessimistic of times, at the best of times. But even now, I feel like people are genuinely starting to believe, starting to, say it's coming home proudly instead of, going, don't jinx it, don't jinx it. Because now I think this England team has done the absolute most to prove that they are the real deal, to prove that, even jinxes and superstitious things and all these kind of demons that they've had in their past, in their history, is not going to affect this team and shouldn't affect this team. Because like I said, they're absolutely stacked. It's amazing when you can bring the likes of, Jack Grealish and Marcus Rashford and such off the bench. And the rotation policy, I think, is just outrageously good. I think a lot of people constantly here, love to question Gareth Southgate and love to accuse him probably of playing things a little too safe. And, even I said it, like when the first couple of team selections came out, I was like, gosh, Gareth, what are you doing? It's like having, these fabulous sports cars, these Ferraris, Maseratis, in your garage, getting ready to play with them. And then you end up choosing like a minivan and say, all right, let's just play it safe. But I think he has proven that he knows how to manage a game that is almost like an art form now. He can turn it up when he wants to turn it up. From the very first game, I remember I asked Calvin Phillips, when are the goals coming? Because now it was only the 1-0 in the first match against Croatia. Then, of course, the draw with Scotland. Then again, against Czech Republic. And it was still, everyone was expecting a big explosive performance, 4 or 5 goals, that we've seen the likes of Italy, Spain, Germany do in history when they do have as much attacking talent as England do finally have now. And I think that finally they saved that that kind of performance best for last, which is obviously what we saw last night. Unfortunately for Ukraine, they had to be the victims of it. But it was the way how they were playing, and the fact that they didn't turn off the gas even when they took the early lead. I think it's a massive message to not just the rest of the teams left in the tournament, but just I think everyone in the world, that this is a very special time in English football. And it's a time where I think England are looking like they could and should dominate for probably a couple of years to come. I think it's a mix of probably three things. One thing being the obvious in terms of having all the talent, all of these names, I think pretty much almost every name is a big name, is a name that, teams around the world would fight for. And it's England are absolutely littered with that now. I mean, even their bench is littered with that, and their bench is bench. You think of who didn't even make the squad. Obviously, Trent Alexander-Arnold suffered the injury, and you're thinking, geez, what happens when Trent comes back in? You have the likes of Jesse Lingard, who was in brilliant form, for West Ham in the last parts of the Premier League season, and he's on vacation in Mykonos. And then you think James Maddison as well isn't even involved, and even people that haven't made their senior debut yet for England, like Patrick Bamford at Leeds, who was scoring basically with his eyes closed. And I'm ready to find out if he has a cat that's Jamaican, because we will take him, because it's absolutely brilliant. Like I said, that England overall just are littered with such talent and such big world-class names in not just one or two. There's not just like one, say, Harry Kane or one Marcus Rashford that you're like, okay, if they get the ball, I'll be good. It's straight from front to back. World-class, I think, defenders, world-class goalkeeper as well. And I think that's truly been a huge factor for England. Then, of course, there is the management and the leadership of Gareth Southgate, who, again, I just explained why he should be getting all the respect that he deserves, even though people still like to question him. He's proven why he knows, more about football than obviously the rest of us. He knows more about this team than the rest of us. I spoke to Raheem Sterling, and he also had said that, Gareth is someone that obviously he credits him for having faith in him, even when everyone was trying to write off Sterling. But it's like Gareth has proven that he knows these players probably sometimes even better than they know themselves. And I think that also the units, I spoke about how Italy looks like a complete unit. This England team, from front to back, it's like a massive brotherhood. Like, they all enjoy playing against each other. They all enjoy playing with each other. So there's so much competition for positions that usually can tear a team apart, and it's almost brought this team closer together. They all understand their roles to a T, like a science. It's amazing. And they all embrace that. They absolutely, again, like I spoke to the likes of Marcus Rashford too, who hadn't really gotten obviously the game time that many probably think he should have, but he takes everything in stride. Reece James as well, coming fresh off a Champions League win, and he wasn't a part of the first game. So before the Scotland game, I was like, do you feel like you should be starting this? You just came off a Champions League win. And he was like, no, I trust the manager. It's horses for courses. He'll bring me in when, he feels that it's a game that can bring out the best in me. And that's exactly what happened. And all of them really seem to embrace all of that competition and don't use it to tear each other apart. So it's like I keep saying, a very special time in English football right now. And they're on to something. This current group, is very, very special. One of the things, though, that stood out to me, if we're going to talk football, is actually when I did speak to Reece James before that Scotland match. And again, he hadn't played in the first match. And I had asked him as well about, you could just be honest with me. Like, do you feel like you want to see the guys scoring 5-0 matches and winning like that, instead of just the 1-0 here and there, which, let's be honest, England fans have been used to. And he said, what, people need to understand that even though we do have this firepower now, you have to manage it properly. Not every win can be sexy football. Of course, we've fallen in love with sexy football thanks to the likes of Brazilians and, the Spanish and Italians. And he said, but they know they can play it, but they're very, very wary of when to use it and where to turn it on. And he said, it's tournament football, and you have to, even though people don't like to hear that you have to manage a game, you have to manage a game. And he says that you kind of find the beauty in these nitty gritty 1-0 wins over the 4-0. He says they learn a lot more from the 1-0 wins. They learn a lot more from that draw against Scotland than probably they learned from yesterday's match against Ukraine. You heard I guess them speaking to Harry Maguire as well as, you know, Harry Kane. And they said it was a perfect night. And it's one of those things that when you're perfect, you don't really need to learn anything more. But, you know, when you are tested and you still manage to just overcome it, they've learned so much from that. And it shows in each game, they just hit strength to strength to strength. You know, they took that loss again, they took that draw against Scotland like a loss. You know, it was absolute depression. And I was like, y'all just drew, it's still fine. But no, they took it like that. And obviously they went back to the drawing board and came out firing ever since. So I think that that was something that, you know, hearing the players, because they're the ones playing it. And of course they want to be let free and play sexy football and all out attack. But hearing, you know, from an actual player say, look, you, sometimes we just have to, we celebrate the nitty gritty ugly wins because we learn so much more from that. So I think that that's something that stuck to me. And I think that that's a big reason of why England are where they are today.